You're listening to an Anderson Entertainment production.
This episode,
we've got the script in Fab Facts.
Somebody's leaving home in the Randomiser.
and it's part 2 with Neil Poulton, and that's by design.
Quite right too, that's all coming up in pod 221.
Of the Ever-So-Designery, Gerry Anderson Podcastery.
Let's get started. Let's go.
Spectrum is green.
The Gerry Anderson Podcast with Jamie Anderson and Richard James.
Yeah,
well,
that was
hello
a bit
there.
strange.
That was weird. I don't know why you said that. I mean, it would be fine if you were doing on my knees, but you weren't doing on my knees. You were doing Richard James's.
It was veering on the Stanley Unwin, wasn't it?
Yeah, on the sort of pound shop Stanley Unwin, though. So
that's me.
Well, joining me is the pound shop Stanley Unwin. I'm Jamie Anderson. And this is the Gerry Anderson Podcast.
Yes, now this
Pod
is
221.
Pod 221. Now, why are we still calling them pods? If anyone's just joining us, they might be thinking, they're trying to be down with the kids and trendy. Why don't we just call them episodes?
Well, because we're definitely not down with the kids, nor are we trendy.
That is true.
And we own that, absolutely.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
It's because of Thunderbird 2 and its pods. And obviously, originally, they only had 6 pods.
Right. But we ran out pretty quickly.
We went through those pretty fast, and it's just stuck. I mean, why change it now?
Yes.
We haven't changed the hosts in 221 shows, so why change what we call them?
That's true. Neither of us have missed a single episode, have we? Single pod.
That seems absolutely bonkers, because even on our... I was going to say our late friends, that's not right. On the late podcast, the Benji and Nick show... Even Benji and or Nick would occasionally miss a podcast, and I stood in for them. But we've had no stand-ins, have we?
No, I know. It's amazing, isn't it? Have we done well?
Yeah, gosh. Well, that's it. Now we've jinxed it. So next week you will be probably not hearing one of us.
I do have a bit of a tickle, actually.
Well, you'll have to get over it because we've got to do a podcast. Now,
fair enough.
What is upcoming in said podcast 221? Keep it concise.
Right. Shortly, Fab Facts. Thereafter, Newsy News. Followed by Interview, Neil Poulton Part 2.
Yep.
Ultimate, Randomiser. And in betwixt and in between, Podsteron emails, tweets, Facebook messages, YouTube comments. How's that? Is that all right?
I mean, it was concise, but it was bloody awkward.
Well, I'm sorry.
So, no, that's absolutely fine. Now, you mentioned the Randomiser, and of course, I've neglected to mention our other co-host, Chris Dale, who will arrive later on.
That was him just shaking in the background.
Shaking his head,
the water
and his enormous ears flapping from side to side. No, that wasn't. That was actually Twiggy, one of my many dogs, who you may hear barking through this podcast. Also, apologies in advance for any clucks or bars or meows, which also may occur. They're all my animals.
Oh, that's just me. Oh, I do.
yeah, you and your clucking. Anyway, let's move on. Let's move on. I feel like it's time we should immediately enter into the world of Fab Facts.
I think you might be right.
Let's do it.
Now, time for this week's Fab Facts.
In the spirit of being concise, I've got a book of Fab Facts. Richard will shout Fab, and I'll read you the Fab Fact from that page. Stop clucking.
Oh, it's all right.
Right. Are you ready?
Okay. Yes, I'm ready.
Let's make it Cluck Facts, and you can cluck, and I'll stop flicking. Right, ready? Here we go.
Just this once. Go on. I think we're going to keep it in. That's great. I enjoyed that.
I'm not sure. Foul facts? Would that be?
Yeah.
Yeah.
A one-off, I think.
Poultry facts. That seems about right. Anyway,
yeah.
You've stopped me in the turn of the decade between the 60s and the 70s. 1969.
Perfect timing. Yeah, great. Mm-hmm.
So, Richard James, what is the one necessary requirement to make any Gerry Anderson show?
Well, I was about to say puppets or marionettes, but of course there are some live-action series, so that wouldn't be right.
Yeah.
You'd need cameras, certainly. Sound equipment?
Well, actually, I mean,
A producer?
I feel like I've gone down an odd alley here. No, but a very important thing for making any show is a script, obviously.
Oh, sure. Yeah, you need a script.
But what's the most important thing you need to make a script?
Typewriter? Paper? I don't know. Where's this going?
No, what comes before all that?
A writer?
Yes, and what do they have?
Talent?
An idea. Okay. Anyway.
Okay. All right, fine. Yes, fine. Yes, okay.
For many of the shows, Dad would often come up with an idea himself and often pitched writers ideas. No, often writers, sorry. Let me start that again. Mm-hmm. Don't start squeaking. Dog squeaking in the background. So, sometimes Dad would come up with an idea himself, and often writers would pitch in ideas to him, or even to a script editor like Tony Barwick.
Yes.
Many of those ideas didn't impress enough to even reach the script stage, however. But today's spotlight is on an unmade episode of UFO titled The Patriot.
Right.
It made it all the way to paper, but didn't make it into production.
Wow.
Yeah. I'm glad you're impressed. The Patriot was written by former podcast guest, the late, marvellous Leo Eaton, who was then serving as an assistant director on UFO. The story concerns a fictional war-torn African nation called Gasuma, where a UFO damaged by moon-based interceptors crash lands. A band of rebel forces, nearly overrun by the Gatumian government, rescue the alien pilot shortly before the spacecraft explodes. Alec Freeman is then sent to cover up the incident, only to find that the rebel commander, Major DeVere, is holding the alien hostage in an attempt to blackmail Shadow and the UN for military support. Quite advanced, quite grown-up stuff.
Yes, isn't it?
Commander Straker is forced to choose between getting involved in a political situation that doesn't concern him or abandoning the freedom fighters to certain death at the hands of the government. Core, dark stuff, UFO.
Absolutely.
Now, we know about this story because Leo saved a copy and then very graciously shared it with Mark Martin, who posted it on his site, UFOseries.com. What we don't know, however, is why the episode wasn't produced. The story does have a very downbeat ending, but I think that's probably pretty standard for UFO.
Yeah, that's right.
That may have been a problem for some, of course. Although, UFO had dark stories throughout and would often end on a bit of a downbeat, sour note. Yeah. So I don't think it is that. Most likely, it's that the idea of a group of minority white Africans battling a majority black African government was deemed too similar to the then unstable climate in what was then Rhodesia.
Right.
And that meant that the script was just too controversial and so was filed away. Despite that, though, it is a strong and dramatic story that puts poor old Ed Straker through even more tough times than he usually has. So did you know about this script already, UFO fans? We would love to know if you did, or if you didn't. And if you do know about it, and if you had time to read it, which you can do at UFOseries.com, then let us know what you think. Do you think anything should be done with it? I mean, would it be a timely thing, bearing in mind the UFO audio series that Big Finish is working on, to have a look at doing that in the future? Let us know what you think. Email us podcast@gerryanderson.com.
Now, that can't be a one-off, can there? There must be unproduced episode of other series, too.
Well, plenty, like House of Dolls for New Captain Scarlet.
Yeah, sure, yeah. And the pilot episode for Space Precinct.
Indeed, Demeter City, but thankfully now novelised by expert
quite right.
novelisator Richard James.
That's right. Yes, is that a word?
It is now.
Yeah, interesting. I like that. I mean, do you think really that the politics of the real world would have prevented a script being produced for a TV show?
I think possibly. Yeah. Could be seen as being too political in and of itself, potentially.
Yeah, okay, fair enough. Interesting.
Yeah, I think that's worth keeping in mind. I mean, it's actually, it's not the same as, but it's quite similar to Noughts and Crosses in a way.
Aha, right.
That sort of, that interesting clash, politically, racially, and something that maybe one doesn't expect from the norm. Yeah. It's interesting how I wonder how that would translate now, even though it's obviously a fictional nation, etc. So tough thing to get right. But it does sound really interesting, doesn't it? It's just a great plot and kind of layers. Nice UFO-y thing. Anyway,
Yeah.
Let us know if you like the idea of it, Podsterons, and if you'd like to hear it in UFO audio form, because, we can at least investigate it at podcast@gerryanderson.com. But that, I think, brings us to the end of this week's
Unproduced
Patriot
UFO episode fact.
What? You had Patriot right there. The episode was called The Patriot.
I wasn't thinking, was I? Panicked and
What did you spill out? Obtuse.
Unproduced UFO episode fact.
God.
It's true.
That was never going to fit with the music, was it?
Oh, well, right. Now, luckily, to save us from our own little argument, our Podsterons have been in touch. They've been emailing us at podcast@gerryanderson.com. For example, Stephen Carson says, Jamie, this is following your rendition of I Wish I Was a Spaceman, of course, from 5XL5, which went down very well and garnered praise from all sorts of quarters, none of which I'm going to read out. This is from Stephen Carson, who says, actually, I found the cover of I Wish I Was a Spaceman with all verses performed by the Slingsby Hornets. Stephen says, it's different but listenable. And also there's one from 1982 by the Cadets. So it's a much-covered song, isn't it?
That Cadets one is really odd. It's so not like the original version.
The original,
It's very light and sort of thin and 80s poppy. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you made an impression, Jamie. People on our Facebook group are asking where they can download your version of a song to have as a ringtone on their phones. What?
Yes, some people are masochists, it turns out.
Yes, indeed. Sam Haley got in touch to say, hi, Jamie, Richard, Chris, and the rest of the Gerry Anderson crew and fellow Podsterons. I started listening to the podcast in early 2021, and I enjoyed every single one of them. The news, the fan mail, the subjects of each podcast interviews, archived interviews, audio excerpts, and more. I met Shane and Sheila Rimmer at Anderson Comic Con in 2016, and it was really an honour meeting them. Shane asked me if I wanted a picture, and Sheila took it for us. Coincidentally, I missed the photo shoot with Shane earlier at the con because I was running late with public transport and was really surprised when he asked that, and I needed quite some time to realise that I was literally standing in front of the man behind Scott Tracy. It was really amazing to hear traces of the Scott voice after all those decades. He says, can you say hi to Sheila and Shane's family for me, if possible? Well, if they're listening, that's a big hello from Sam Haley. He goes on to say, I've watched Thunderbird since I was little. I was one of the kids who was introduced to the Gerry Anderson series due to the BBC's 90s broadcast series. I had an international rescue outfit when I was little. I bought it in London in the 90s on holiday, and I still have a photo of it. Since I was born in 1992, says Sam, aren't I technically a few years younger than Grandma Tracy? Wow, when you put it like that, that's odd, isn't it?
Yes, but if you start to cross fictional timelines on your own, then you're in all sorts of trouble.
Sam has a question. Did Gerry ever intend to have Thunderbirds and Captain Scarlet share the same universe from the start, or did the TV21 comics folk see to that?
I think it's all pretty much TV21 comics derived. It wasn't something that crossed into his head and didn't fit in really with his, moving on mentality.
Yeah, right.
It was that thing's done, bookended, on to the next.
Something new now.
But I think he appreciated and understood the value of what they were doing in TV21 by seeding properties across each other and introducing things in early ones. I mean, we had that fab fact a while ago about the Mysterons strip and headlines featuring. That was such a weird thing, a strange way to do it, but kind of built up anticipation. So a very, very clever thing to do. And of course they fit naturally, because, they all come from the same kind of spirit,
from the same brain.
Team, the same group of ideas, the same, the same brain, exactly. So they share a kind of a structure, they share a world, in inverted commas, as in the kind of the fictional Earth they were set on seems pretty similar across shows. So, there you go. There's a nice non-answer for you.
Yeah, absolutely. He also goes on to say, nobody mentioned anything in all the 200 podcasts about the sound design, if I'm not mistaken. Like engine sounds, for example, Stingray and Thunderbird 2.
Excuse me, we definitely have covered that. I think you will find, because if you go back to the Dirk Maggs episodes, we played out a thing about John and Jean Taylor, John, who sadly passed away at the beginning of the year, and all the stuff, and you can hear the audio of them doing it, where they're doing engine sounds, injector tubes, ice forming, all that sort of stuff. So go back to the Dirk Maggs episodes and you will be very happy indeed.
There you go, Sam. He says, P.S. I'm half English and Thunderbirds made me extremely proud of my English heritage back when I was little, and it still does now. So that's nice, isn't it?
Excellent.
Thanks for getting in touch, Sam. Tiffany Valentine says, hi, Rich and Jamie. I'm a new Gerry Anderson fan, and I love, Stargate 1. So this is in response to, that's it, SG-1. Is that what it became? Was it just Stargate and then SG-1
I thought it was called Stargate SG-1 , wasn't it?
Oh, okay. I don't know. Anyway, this goes back to the...
We're not experts in that. This isn't a Stargate podcast, mate. Come on.
This goes back to a fab fact, I think, about their homage to Supermarionation and puppetry in one of their episodes. And Tiffany Valentine says, The Expanse would be amazing to be done in Supermarionation, but I'd love The Hobbit done that way and maybe Red Dwarf. Yeah, that could work, couldn't it?
Yeah, I'm sure the Red Dwarf guys would love that.
Yeah. Liam Mahoney, who calls himself a totally gutted UFO fan, writes, in Pod 219, you said that there's a lot of love out there for UFO at the moment, but I'm sorry to report that there's actually not enough, at least not for 1612. I've just had my pre-order for the Shadow Mobile.
Richard.
With UFO Saucer cancelled. 1612 said they didn't have enough pre-orders to cover the costs of going into production. In fact, they said the pre-orders were a long way short of what they needed to cover the costs, and so they'd had to cancel my order. I'm absolutely gutted. I've already got the UFO and the Shadow Interceptor models from 1612, and I was really looking forward to having the three Shadow mobiles that they were proposing to add to my collection. I couldn't afford to pay the full price in one go, and so I was over the moon when 1612 introduced a payment by instalments plan. I'd already made the first two payments, was expecting to make the third in a week or so, but now the payments have been refunded. My order cancelled. It looks like there'll be a huge empty space in my display unit for a long time to come. I don't recall seeing these mobiles in the Gerry Anderson store. I know you've listed stuff from Big Chief and others, so I was wondering if you'd considered listing these Shadow mobiles. It might have made enough of a difference to allow 1612 to put them into production. It's such a shame that they will never now be made, and that's from Liam Mahoney.
Well, Liam, yes, that is very sad. Now, you're right. We used to do pre-orders in partnership with Big Chief and 1612.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
However, in the sort of post-COVID world particularly, pre-order timelines have been so tricky.
Yeah.
It then puts a huge amount of pressure on poor Tim and Louise, who run our operations and customer service, who work incredibly hard to keep people up to date. But when delivery dates get pushed back and back and back, people get frustrated.
Yeah.
They take out their frustration on Tim and Louise and me.
Mm-hmm.
And it kind of people then lose faith a bit in what we do, which I don't like.
No, that's right.
So to protect our team from some really, quite frankly, unpleasant emails and personal attacks, I took the decision to not list pre-orders from third-party companies because we just can't keep a track of what they're doing. There's too many links in the chain. It's really frustrating and really sad, and we'd love to work more closely with them to make that work, but for now we just can't. I mean, things like the Big Chief Commander Koenig, which I think was put on pre-order nearly 3 years ago, is that right?
Gosh, right.
And still hasn't arrived. So I just it doesn't feel right to expose you Podsterons, any fans, to that length of wait, which is so unpredictable and which we can't control ourselves. I know that sounds like a bit of a boohoo moan.
No, I don't think so.
It's just the position we're in.
And I think it's different if you're producing something yourself as Anderson Entertainment, because you're quite happy to take the rap then, because that's your responsibility.
So,
and hands up and mea culpa.
Here's one
and all
for
that.
you. I'm going to put hands up now. I was going to mention it in the news, but I'll say now.
Yeah.
I was incredibly optimistic, over-optimistic with the delivery of our soundtrack and concert DVD. I thought, we'll do no problem. We'll get all that sorted. No, having not done it before and realised all the paperwork, the licensing requirements, the mix requirements. Goodness me. I thought we could do it in 8 weeks.
Right.
And it's probably, by the time it comes out, it would have been about 6 months. So a massive underestimate. But that's on me. That's our thing. So I can say, sorry, we messed up there, but it is on the way. And it is on the way with loads of extra features. But yeah, that's the problem, isn't it? You know, we can take the rap because it's us and it's my mistake. It was my judgment call. Yeah. Whereas if we are removed from another company that's then removed from a factory that's making it with all the sort of shipping stuff in between, it's just too many links in the chain.
Yeah. Great. Very comprehensive answer. I hope that satisfies
comprehensive.
you, Liam.
Too
No, it's
comprehensive.
really interesting. And I think it's interesting because people don't necessarily think about all the minutiae that goes into producing anything. It's not just recording it and putting it on a disc, is it? There's so much more to it than that. And I think it's very easy for people to think, well, why isn't that out? He said 4 months. Why isn't it here? Well, other things have got in the way.
Yes. Yeah, there's just, there's so many moving parts and bits and pieces that need to happen in any project, any product. I mean, I could bore you all to tears with all the elements of an audio drama production, for example, or the concert or anything else. Anyway, let's move on.
Yeah, okay. Well, that's all for now, as it happens, but do
We've
keep
run out
your
of time for the
emails coming
entire
in.
podcast. That's the end of it.
Yeah, that's it. You know the address. It's podcast@gerryanderson.com, and I shall endeavour to read your emails out next time.
Excellent. Now, would you like some slightly awkward news?
Go on then. Orcs.
All will be revealed in this week's Gerry Anderson News. Yes, it's the Gerry Anderson Awksy News.
Orcsy news. Orcsy, orcs, as you could say.
Yes, that's awkward, not auxiliary. So I've got two slightly cagey things for you because I can't quite tell you exactly what they are and about them because I don't know how much has been released by the time the podcast is out, which is slightly annoying. But
I see.
So you may have seen mention of something rather lovely and UFO-y in the last 24 to 72 hours, possibly, or maybe not. But if not, then you will do very, very soon. Yes, that's a sort of, I can't mention it on a technicality. We appear to have some operations things. I wish there was a manual for this. Do you see what I'm saying? No? Anyway, more on that. Either already happening right now or happening shortly. You may also have heard about a Space 1999-y thingy. Some lost stories novelised, and I again I'm not sure how much is out there yet, so this might be exclusive, or you might be going, yes, I know about that already. But anyway, it's very exciting, lots of fun stuff coming, and obviously if it's a Space 1999 thing that's being talked about in September, you can be pretty sure there'll be a pre-order for Breakaway Day, I would imagine.
Yes.
Anyway, if live action's not your thing and you're more into the Supermarionation era, then our Thunderbirds notebook and launch bay sign, Thunderbird 1 launch bay sign, are shipping and have proved to be quite popular. If you've got the sign, I would love to see where you've located it in your man or woman cave.
Downstairs bathroom.
Your person cave. Yes, your downstairs bathroom. I hadn't even thought of that.
Of course you would.
I'm going to put mine above the loo. Absolutely amazing. Perfect. Have you put it in the kitchen next to the lemon squeezer? We would love to see your photos.
Nice.
Please email them to podcast@gerryanderson.com.
@gerryanderson.com. That's very strange.
I don't know why I did it like that. No. Back to UFO for a moment. The UFO audio series, Big Finish's reimagining, starting in 1975 rather than 1980, giving us some lovely insight into the genesis of Shadow. It's very cool. Barnaby K as Straker is fantastic, and the CD is now available from the Gerry Anderson store. In fact, the CD is sold out in the Gerry Anderson store in 16 hours, so we've had to get more, but there should be more now, so that's good. Also, if you're in the USA, don't forget that the Gerry Anderson store of North America at gerryanderson.store has now got the Lost Worlds of Gerry Anderson on DVD. Now, I thought everybody would have this by now.
Yes,
but,
I think so.
We let our wonderful American fans know about the Lost Worlds, and again, it's sold out in 2 days. So we've got more on the way now, but the main title you'll probably know on there is The Day After Tomorrow, also known as Into Infinity, that one-off special. Which was NBC, wasn't it, I think? Which was done in the middle of the two series of Space 1999. It's got Brian Blessed and Nick Tate in it, but it's got other curios, other unusual pilots that were not broadcast, like The Investigator. And probably the less said about that, the better, but it is absolutely fascinating and bizarre. Space Police, the precursor to Space Precinct, and a load of other bits and pieces, including Here Comes Candy, which was made by Polytechnic Films, which was the studio that Dad worked for before they set up AP Films, and it's a colour puppet show. Full of filthy innuendo, really terrible stuff, but quite entertaining. So you can pick that up from gerryanderson.store. And if you haven't got it in the UK, there is a Region 2 version, because the US one is Region 1. There's a Region 2 version in the UK, which is also available from shop.gerryanderson.com. I do hope all these web addresses aren't getting too confusing. They are for my poor little brain. Now, if you can get to Manchester in the UK on the 17th of September, that's this month, Andrew Harmon will be there at Tabletop Gaming Live, where he'll be doing live playthroughs and demos of Thunderbirds Danger Zone. So if you're in or around Manchester, may I highly recommend you visit Tabletop Gaming Live. He will also have copies of the game, which he'll be selling there, and he'll even sign them for you, I would imagine, if you would like that, and you probably would like that. So there you go. That's quite a lot of stuff, and there's loads more going on, and particularly the stuff that you may now know about that I couldn't talk about fully earlier because I wasn't sure if you know about it yet. But anyway, keep an eye on our social media channels and gerryanderson.com for more. But that's the end of this week's Gerry Anderson News.
That was the news. That was the news. Very good. Crikey, that was a busy one. Yeah, well,
yeah. Now, very busy.
Over on our Facebook group, Too Busy. You can never be too busy, really?
I don't know.
You're suggesting that we could ever have too much Gerry Anderson news?
No. I don't know. Maybe, yes, just life. Anyway, get on with it.
Over in our Facebook group, that's facebook.com/groups/Podsterons, Miles Parrish has posted a number of things struck me about this week's interview with Neil Poulton. Number one, I loved the artistic elements of his commentary about the design of the crafts and uniforms. It was super insightful, and I thought his comment on the idea of the pod vehicles as the elements was very intriguing. Number two, as someone whose adult career path began with a job I got from being interested in interior design because of Anderson shows, brackets, furniture salesman, it's always fab to hear of someone else who was influenced by the Anderson creative side of Anderson works. Number three, for my current job, I've recently had to frequently visit the retail stores of a certain mobile telephone manufacturer. I noticed last week that they sell lacy, rugged hard drives, and it appears one of my most annoying personality traits, not being able to resist telling anyone who will listen some obscure facts 8 times over about something or other, has turned itself off. Look at all this Anderson-related personal growth, says Miles. Well, it's our pleasure, Miles. It's what we're here for.
Yes, pretty much.
It is true. Roger Smith usually posts pictures of his cosplay, but has now started posting pictures of, some food, frankly. This week he posted, my cheese, bacon, potato skins, and you'll never find better, so my family say. Nothing to do with Gerry Anderson, but they looked gorgeous. Steve Butchell says, this is in response to a question from Dane, who says, what order should I watch UFO in? I've seen 4 or 5 different orders of how to watch the episodes. Steve Butchell responded, I think as long as you watch Identified first, then more or less any order, to which Ian Stevens added, I'd add Exposed as the second episode, then any order after that. Yeah? Makes sense?
Chris did a great video about why there are so many episode orders and talks about the various perils of various episode orders of UFO in that video. So go to youtube.com/Gerry Anderson TV and you will find it there. Why so many Gerry Anderson episode orders?
Great. Yeah, nice. Stephen Height posted, big thumbs up to the HMV store in the Birmingham Bullring, who have set up their own Anderson section, possibly as a result of the April concert, says Stephen. But then John Jackson says, well, Manchester HMV also have one. So that's good, isn't it?
Great, isn't it?
Yeah.
Lovely.
So if you're near an HMV in one of our larger towns or cities, it might be worth popping in to see what they have. Hannah says, I went to the model railway exhibition during the weekend, and look who I found waiting for a train. And she posted a picture of the model railway, and there, standing on a platform, was Virgil Tracy. So, I have a question for you. Where have you unexpectedly encountered an Anderson character? Don't know, Scott Tracy in the queue for Greggs, or Captain Scarlet at a car boot sale? I don't know. Let us know. Yeah. Where have you unexpectedly encountered an Anderson character? Send in your spots to podcast@gerryanderson.com, and I'm sure Jamie will come up with a suitably Anderson-esque subject title.
I'm not sure I can.
Anderspots.
Oh, yes.
How's that?
I need some cream for that. Yes, Anderspots is fine. I mean, I was going to say I once spotted Officer Hubble Orin at a house in Buckinghamshire.
Yes, that's right. You did. That's true.
So that was very exciting.
I gave one of my little Officer Orin dolls away at the weekend while I was away on holiday.
Did you? To
Well,
a
we had
willing
a
recipient?
raffle. Yeah, well, not entirely, no. We had a raffle where you wrap up some things, put them all on the floor, and then you get 2 decks of cards. One deck of cards is dealt out to all the people playing, and the other deck of cards is held for the dealer, who calls out 2 of spades, 3 of clubs, what have you. And if you have that card, you get to choose whatever it is from the floor without knowing what it is. And of course, once the things on the floor have run out, you can start picking them from other people's hands. So if you like the look of something, even though you don't know what it is, and you get your card drawn, you can steal it from them. And a very good friend of mine ended up with their very own Officer Orin doll.
Oh, how lovely.
Isn't that nice? Well, I've got plenty, you see.
Yeah, I was going to say, you've got the world's largest stock of them, haven't you?
Just about. All for now, but do join in the fun on our Facebook group. It's very easy to find us, the official podcast listeners group. Answer a few questions, and we'll let you in. Simple as that.
Amazing.
Yeah, 880 something, I think at the moment it is, membership. So, we could still get to 1,000 by the end of the year.
I think we should. It would be nice.
Yeah,
nice round 1,000, and then we'll just close the doors, and that's it. No more. No, we wouldn't do that. Never. Would you like some more interviewee stuff?
Oh, yes, please. Is it Neil Poulton again?
Well, yes, as you might remember,
yes.
we have been speaking to Neil Poulton, who is one of Time Magazine's Design 100. He's the top people and ideas behind today's influential design. So there you go. He's included in the permanent contemporary collection of the Centre Georges Pompidou in Paris.
Great.
Did you know that?
No, I didn't know that, no.
I mean, I don't know if I've said that correctly, but it sounded convincing.
It sounded pretty good, yeah.
And of course, he's the designer of Dad's favourite hard drive, the Rugged Lacey, which was inspired by the SPV from Captain Scarlet. Well, Neil's back, so here's Neil Poulton Part 2, with apologies for the audio quality, which Neil wanted me to point out. So sorry about that, but, you can still hear him. Here you go. Here's Neil. So, Space 1999, you said it was a bit of a generational change and you weren't so into that. Have you caught up with it over the years, or did it...
Yeah, it's funny enough, here in France, it's called Cosmos 1999.
Yeah.
It was incredibly popular here. Yeah. Incredibly popular. And it's the best known, I think, with my experience, it's the best known of all of the Gerry Anderson things in France.
Yeah.
But that was again, there was another designer that did... that was, what is he called? Was it Brian Johnson?
Brian Johnson. That,
Who did that. And again, I think with Space 1999, there was 2 things. One was that there was less variation in the number of different crafts, because everything was basically an eagle. It was a medical eagle or a military eagle, or et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And one thing, when the preamble was the same, one thing that's really interesting in Space 1999 is that it's filled with real pieces of Italian design. And so there are lots of Italian design chairs and lights and all of the sets. And we were talking earlier about the Sorella lamp, and the Sorella lamp was on the console of everybody. And that was a lamp that was manufactured by Iguzzini. But apart from that, there's a number of lamps, for example, the Tizio, which were manufactured by Artemidi. There's the Tizio, there's a Ghiolenti, it's called the Pilio by Ghiolenti. Anyway, and also the chairs, the sort of the shiny chairs, they're magistrati chairs called the Sileni, and they were also manufactured by Artemidi. And so Artemidi is a company that I've been working for since the mid-90s. Amazing. And I have designed not a number, actually a huge quantity of lighting for them that would actually fit really nicely into a Space 1999 set. So and it's kind of it's the way these things come around. It was something that I must have been because I never really realized it until somebody pointed it out to me. And then when they pointed it out to me, I started seeing all of the different designs that I knew.
Can't escape it.
And it's wow, that must have been there all the time, and I never noticed it. There's even here's the thing: in Space 1999, there is the Divisumma, which is an Olivetti calculating machine, which is in orange rubber.
Amazing. Okay, I see the link.
and it might have been, no, it's just like, it's something that I must have seen, and because I always knew this DB Suma. It's and I think in Space 1999 it was a translation machine. I think I'm not entirely sure. You'd have to check that. But I think that's what they used it for. Anyway, there's all these different sort of elements. It's like you're sort of like you can never get away from the family.
Once it makes its mark, I guess. Yeah, I mean, it's if it's stuff that is so much part of your childhood and so much of a part of your kind of visual education of the wider world that's in an exciting way, then it makes sense that it makes some kind of an imprint on you and affects you potentially for the rest of your life. Do you feel in the work that you do that you are either consciously or subconsciously drawing on, stuff from the past that inspired you in your childhood?
Certainly, just now, in any case, I'm using a lot of like direct references, where before I used to use a lot of indirect references. The world has changed a little bit, and people want story. They don't just want to buy an object; they want to buy an experience and a story. So it's there's been this change a little bit away from possession to experience. So that an example in a sort of more concrete way is like instead of buying a radio, people prefer to go hang gliding. It's like the experience of hang gliding is considered to be more worthwhile than using that same money to buy a radio. So there's a sort of a change there. But I think that one of the things that you really one of the really lasting effects is this sort of the singularity of those Captain Scarlet and UFO craft. That I tell you, things that are very pure in design, I kind of cut them back to being the sort of the essential. I don't actually use a lot of those famous compound curves that Mike Trim was always on about. But I think that the spirit, sort of the essence of the thing is still there. I think that the rugged could have easily been something that was in a pod in Thunderbird 2. You can imagine a huge, big rugged like sliding down out of a down the ramp from a pod. So yeah, I think it's really sort of it's always there. But as I say, recently I've been doing things a little bit more literally. Because I just did a lighting range, an outdoor lighting range for a tying company, which is based on a thorn bush. Because in design thinking, there's this thing called design thinking. It's called I can't remember what it's called. Rosebud thorn. It's called. Okay. So rosebud thorn is rose is what is working.
Yeah.
Bud is what has potential, and thorn is what's you've got to get rid of. Thorn's a thing that's thorny aside. So basically, this lighting system I've designed, it kind of looks like a branch of a tree, and it was based on a thorn bush. When you clip off all the thorns, you remove the thorns, and you have this. It's a really beautiful piece of work. But that's a very sort of literal, like a translation. And I think I'm doing that more so. So if I was to do something that was Thunderbird influenced now, I think it would be much more literal than what I've been doing up to now. I'm sorry, am I getting it off subject?
Not at all. If you're saying I'm talking about Thunderbirds, no. I mean, I think I might know what you're going to answer this, but if you look back across the Canon and Anderson vehicles and designs in the past, which one do you think has had the most impact? Maybe just on you, but more widely. What was the most significant of the vehicles that you remember, and why?
Oh, that's a really difficult one. It depends who you speak to. I mean, you speak to a girl, she's going to say the Fab 1.
That's possible. I've been for you personally, or for which one stands out in your mind as the strongest?
I think I'd have a great difficulty in selecting just one child. It's the Sophie's choice. The favourites, obviously, Thunderbird 3, the SPV, obviously, the UFO Interceptor. Which ones have I got? Like because I bought
Stingray.
Stingray is amazing. The Eagle's not my thing, because Eagles are sort of like this. Okay. It's this architectural assembly of Eagle. Looks like somebody had lots of different model kits lying around and sort of like built this thing from what was what was on the table. So you've got the sort of the head pod which is very organic, and then the rockets on the back, and then you've got this sort of lattice work of construction between the two of them. So no, the eagle for me isn't one of my ones.
Interesting.
No, it's really the angel interceptors.
Yeah,
the angel interceptors are beautiful.
Yeah,
I mean they look like flying darts. You know, like sort of like that's a really incredible design. And that was one of the ones that Dinky never made.
I know. Yeah, you could get the Airfix model, but there was no Dinky toy, right? So
yeah, that was the other thing. Like in my generation, Dinky had such a huge influence on it because when you got the Dinky, I mean, like the Joe, I never liked Joe 90, but the Joe 90 Dinky car, I don't know, what's it called?
The Jet Air car, yeah.
Yeah, it's a fantastic thing. It's got this, the Dinky toy's got the suspension and the flip out, you press the button and the wings fly out. Yeah. And it's a beautiful piece. And I think that in terms of the longevity of maybe of the Anderson, all of the Anderson products, that Dinky had an enormous influence.
Yeah.
Because I mean, they must have been selling like, I don't know if they were selling millions, but they were certainly selling hundreds of thousands of those things.
I'm almost certain they were selling millions of them, and it meant that you could take the adventures from the TV screen into your own hands, right? That's a big part of it, the tangible nature of these things.
But the other thing about the Dinky things is they were metal and they were solid and they were qualitative and they were built to last. And it was a really sort of high quality toy. And I mean that's why there's so many of them still around today. You can pick them up anywhere, you know.
Yeah, and a great weapon to potentially bash a younger annoying sibling over the head with. I'm sure that happened quite a lot of the time.
The trick was not to lose the plastic bits, really, wasn't it? Because like, you know, Thunderbird 4 was this sort of little bit of yellow plastic that
hollow little rubbish thing which disappeared.
Just went, and I remember in the what's the other Captain Scarlet, the tank with had the
MSV, the white one.
The MSV, yeah, and that's a beautiful design. That's great.
Yeah.
And the flip up doors on the sort of the DeLorean doors on the side.
Yeah.
But that had a little crate inside it, didn't it?
Crate of gold, right? Yeah.
And it had like nuclear symbols on the side of it, or radioactive symbols. And that always disappeared. You lost that immediately as well.
I think you're reawakening quite a lot of painful memories for a lot of listeners who lost their UFO missile, or their Fab 1 missile, or the little kind of harpoon things that came out the back. I mean,
or they broke the legs of the Thunderbird 2.
But they were so fragile, those legs on that thing. I mean, did you have a blue Thunderbird 2?
Well, actually, I went through this phase in the beginning of around the 2000s, and I had too much money and not enough sense, and I bought up huge quantities of like old Dinky toys. So I think I now have everything. But I can't remember at the time. I think it was a green one.
Oh yeah, coloured one.
But the blue one. Again, that was what was the story behind that? Why was it blue?
Allegedly, there was a child psychologist working for Dinky who said kids don't buy green toys. That's the main story. And then they had the blue paint instead. They went for that. But then later, the UFO Interceptor and the Eagle, they were metallic green.
Metallic green, yeah.
So whether that's a change of heart, or there's another story that they had a glut of certain paint colours that they couldn't use and they wanted to use them up. Whatever. I mean, a lot of people would strip down and repaint their Dinky Interceptors and Eagles and make them proper white rather than green or blue.
But I love the green one. That was a great one as well. But that one, it was a firing mechanism that broke in the UFO. They had the sort of the spring-loaded firing mechanism underneath it, and that always snapped. Yeah. But just now there was Product Enterprises, and they started doing these amazing, like, you know, huge replicas.
Yeah,
I think they've gone now, haven't they? Product Enterprises.
They're now 1612, so they're still around, but they're doing some slightly smaller stuff these days.
Yeah, but I mean, I bought the huge big. There was the huge big Thunderbird 3 and the huge big Thunderbird 1 in the launch silos.
And the Thunderbird 2. I'm just taking a picture because I've got one on my shelves above my desk.
All right. Okay. I never bought the Thunderbird 2. There you go.
It's a beauty. It's weighty. It's solid resin, so it is. It's chunky.
A big piece. Yeah. But I still have the boxes and everything. You know, the boxes are like 70 centimeters tall. You know, for the. But I mean, they were just so amazing. So amazingly well done, and done by people obviously have a great amounts of love for
absolutely,
for everything that was done by your dad.
It's all the people who've got a lot of love for it that keep it going now, really. Yourself included, with stuff like The Rugged, which is the reason we're having the conversation, because childhood exposure to a TV show eventually leads to something where you draw on the word indestructible, and it ends up being a little kind of orange SPV inspired design. It's amazing.
Well, here's a question: do you think Elon Musk ever watched Thunderbirds?
Well, allegedly, he did watch Space 1999. And a couple of years ago, he tweeted a video from Space 1999 Year 2, I think, saying, coming soon to a moon near you. So we definitely think there's some inspiration there. We know that, Richard Branson was a big Thunderbirds fan. I don't know about Bezos, but, clearly those Anderson influences extend into the world of billionaires. Because
the one I was thinking about was the what the hell is it called? The Falcon Heavy,
which looks like XL5, right? Is that?
No, it wasn't that really. It was the fact that it, like Thunderbird 3, it lands vertically.
Yeah. Well, I mean, aesthetically, I think it's got an XL5 kind of body shape to it. But the vertical takeoff and landing thing is very Thunderbird 3, Thunderbird 1.
Well, Thunderbird one landed horizontally. Had its little.
It had to get back into the pool somehow, didn't it?
Oh, did you ever see that?
I can't, off the top of my head, I can't remember. I'm sure he did see that. They probably just cranked the film back.
But that was like a lot of these things. It's like I always like the fact that it must have been difficult to get the puppets to get into the craft.
Oh yeah.
So they developed this that whole sequence of almost the wall panels falling over, becoming the chutes and sliding out, which is iconic. Yes. In the way they get into the craft from above, they get slotted in and all this sort of stuff.
Yeah.
It's just iconic, and you can imagine. You think about it, it's because trying to get a jumpy puppet to walk up the stairs, to get into a cockpit or something would just look stupid. It's your little friend talking there. No, but it's funny that these sort of things, that these sort of accidents do become in themselves icons.
Yeah, I know. And it's things which are entirely impractical in design, with it derived from a pragmatic solution to the impracticality of the puppets walking. But the same in Fireball with them on the jet cars, little jetmobiles, Stingray with the injector tubes down from the top. They're all kind of willfully over complex to solve a practical filmmaking problem in a way, and it kind of works.
Yeah, no, it does. It creates its own universe, its own logic. Yeah. You'd be so disappointed to sort of see Virgil walking up a step ladder to get into Thunderbird 2.
Let's hope we never have to see that. We can't be doing with mundane entry into vehicles, Neil.
What did you think about the more recent version of Thunderbirds?
Are we talking 2004, the Frakes movie, or the ITV animated series?
More the ITV animated series.
I mean, that's tricky for us because we weren't directly involved with that.
Okay.
And it's something that Dad wanted to do for years and was prevented from doing. So it's kind of, in a way, it's kind of galling to see it happen in the wake of his passing. I think a lot of people on that show who really loved the original, and you can see that. But I also feel like it just missed the spirit for whatever reason. I mean, I don't know from your point of view in terms of aesthetics or anything else, if you were an avid viewer and a huge fan of it.
No, but it's just like, again, it's with the craft. If you're you shouldn't mess with icons. It's like either just leave them as they are or do something completely different.
Yeah,
I can imagine the Japanese being able to do a really good version of Thunderbirds.
Because it's built into their kind of comic culture. It's the biggest import culture-wise, I think, in all of Japan, really.
I was thinking really of the Japanese aesthetic. If you apply that, sort of to the Thunderbirds craft, and they all become a rounded off sort of a rice cooker sort of style. I could see that really working as a completely different take on it. But what you don't want to do is just take the existing one and make Thunderbird 2 look as if it's not fat. I mean, the whole point of Thunderbird 2 is it's supposed to look like it's a
squish bumblebee, really,
or a toad, a toad blowing up its cheeks. It's like that. It's like, and that's what makes it iconic.
Yeah, well, it's always a tough one, isn't it? Somebody's going to try and reinterpret something to either leave it exactly the same, but then why are you doing it? So it's I don't want to go on.
Yeah, you can understand that. Of course, it's beneficial for everybody because in the end, the kids that are watching this afterwards, they go back and watch the originals, and it keeps the whole thing running. You know, so it's like and otherwise you end up with something which was destined for children just being enjoyed by adults. You know, and so it does really help to get younger generations into it.
Absolutely, and lots of them have now found the classic, and then they find Stingray and Captain Scarlet, and on and on and on it goes. And so it all feeds into the machine, I guess, which is partly why we do all this sort of stuff and have these conversations.
Is there any more Thunderbirds in the works? Any news?
Well, there's all so many options. We'd love to see stuff happen, but it's currently ITV's thing, and I don't think they've got any plans right now. But I never say never, because it's such an amazing creative universe. It always feels rather sad to me that it kind of doesn't get the love that it needs to sort of keep it fresh and new in the public eye, because there's lots of people that, you know, would love to see human live action Captain Scarlet getting crushed and torn apart every week. So yeah, never say never. Neil, is there anything that you're working on currently that might have an Anderson-y vibe to it, or do you feel like you might be channeling anything in the future?
I'm not really on here to peddle anything I'm doing, but if you want, there's always things on my website, which is neilpoulton.com, neilpoulton.com, because people can never spell it. And for that particular hard drive company, there's a new product coming out in 1st September. A new product done for them, which is a completely new product, completely different. So there's always things happening. There's always things going on. But as I said, I didn't come on here to peddle my stuff. I came on here to talk about Thunderbirds and Captain Scarlet and UFO and Stingray,
which we have done and delved in, and it's been brilliant. My one final thing, I'm just going to plant a seed. Maybe it's Space 1999's 50th anniversary in 2025.
Right.
Just wondering if there's some, opportunity there.
I'll go and speak to the Japanese.
Well, I was thinking maybe some lamps or some chairs, but yeah, let's go the whole hog. But yeah, you never know. I would definitely love to see some Space 1999 inspired lamps and beyond, if that's a possibility in the future.
Yeah, no, but we'll see how it goes. It's as I say, it's always there. I mean, it's always there at the back of your mind. For me, really, that whole sort of space fashion thing was a huge influence. And again, I didn't say that at all, but 2001 was a huge influence as well. And 2001 uses a lot of real design furniture. Yeah, and that's it's the same period. Well,
and it was Brian Johnson who then went back to Space 1999, and Kubrick threatened to sue Dad's studio because Space 1999 was so similar in so many ways.
I didn't know that.
Yeah,
that's interesting.
There's a great telegram from his archive that I've seen somewhere, basically saying, they didn't even have they weren't polite enough to have the name dissimilar enough. I mean, you've just taken 2 away from 2001, and you're pretty much there. So he was really pissed off. But thankfully never took any real action, because I don't think there was any direct kind of derivation, but it was just it's the zeitgeist at the time, isn't it? It's always
absolutely
everything's going to have a kind of similar look and feel because of what's going on culturally.
If you go back to your man Musk, because he's such a fan of that period as well, I mean, he's the guy that's going to make those things real.
Yeah,
if there's any of them out of the 3 big billionaire space race guys, he's the one that's going to really make that happen.
Yeah. Well, in which case, let's look forward to a Moonbase Alpha, but hopefully not a conflict with a non-corporeal Martian race. Let's keep our fingers crossed. Neil, can people find you? You said people can find you online, neilpoulton.com. Are you on any social media or stuff, or do you avoid that?
No, I'm on everything. The only one I actually really update at all is Instagram.
Okay.
But it's Neil Poulton on Instagram, so you can find that. It's fairly easy to find, but it depends. I do it in stops and starts, which you're not supposed to do on Instagram. when I have new things, I put the new things on, and if I don't have anything, I just don't bother posting.
Okay. Well, maybe if you can post a picture of Thunderbird 3 sometime soon, and the listeners will come and find you and say hello.
Okay. When will this go out?
Probably last week of August, I would think.
Well, if you send me a heads up, I'll put something on Instagram for it.
All right, you're a star. We'll send the Podsterons your way to comment and like and say hello, and say that the Eagle is actually the best craft ever designed. So there,
I'm sure the polemic has already started. People, I'll be receiving hate mail from people, fairly soon. Actually, I do receive hate mail from people for the rugged. Believe it or not.
Really?
Yeah. Well, it's because they sort of every once in a while a rugged actually dies for whatever reason, and then and it's my fault, and I get letters saying I've lost all of my photos, all of my music, whatever it is. And one time, actually, I got a call like that. Guy with a weird accent, and he said, "Our rugged drive has crashed, and you must send us a new one immediately, or we will kill you and all of your family."
Oh my God!
And I said, "Who is this?" Yeah. And the guy says, "No, I will give you the coordinates, and you will send it by helicopter." I said, "Yeah, okay, right." And I put the phone down, just
Oh, amazing.
So anyway, hang on, because there is a sort of it's not finished.
Oh my God!
So anyway, the guy at some point in time, he said he was part of the FARC, who were the terrorist group from South America. So about 4 years later, Interpol busted the FARC, and there's a photograph of all of their computer equipment. And there's 4 rugged drives in it.
Oh, so you were actually probably really under threat from.
It's just I could send you the Interpol photo. It's just if somebody phones you up and goes, and you say, yeah, just don't bother me with this sort of rubbish.
Oh, that's amazing.
So I'm now questioning putting my name on the products. It's like Tony Stark in the Avengers. He has his name on the missile that's killed your entire family, and there's just the Stark bit that's sticking out of your blown up house. It's like,
yeah, we'll just put Neil Poulton does not negotiate with terrorists on there, and then you'll be fine.
Anyway, that was a completely off subject story just to finish with.
It's still perfectly fitting with the characters like the Hood in Thunderbirds and the Mistrons and stuff. I think that's spot on, that you should be exposed to real life terrorists as well. Still, no, it's been brilliant chatting. Thank you so much.
Okay, great to hear from you.
Thank you very much, Neil Poulton.
Yes, thanks, Neil. Nice to have him along.
Find Neil's website, neilpoulton.com. And find him on socials and Instagram and all that sort of stuff. And I think he promised he'd post something Anderson-y. I'm going to check now to see if he did last week or not.
Ah, good. Yeah, check up on him. While you do that, I'm just going to head on over to YouTube because some people have been commenting over last week's pod, the first part of Neil's interview. Ian Deeney says, I think the SPV from Captain Scarlet and the Mistrons is a better design than the Rhino from New Captain Scarlet, given that it's much more streamlined. Yeah, fair enough. Yeah, John Clay says, good podcast. I bought the Secret Service on DVD. Great technical mixture for 1969. Yeah. And Keith Gooch has left us one of his YouTube reviews, which are always a pleasure to read. Another great episode of the Gerry Anderson podcast, Pod 220, with all the usual cheeky banter between Richard and Jamie. As to the Fab Facts this week and the Stargate SG-1 200th episode marionette segment, I've seen it on YouTube and it's funny. Mind you, the Supermarionation marionettes could go through doors for the same reason that it, or rather could not go through doors, I suppose, for the same reason that it would break the wires. I've never heard of Neil Poulton before, but really enjoyed part 1 of his interview. Nice to hear another Scottish voice on the podcast. And finally, Chris Dale's Randomiser review, which was the Protectors episode, Burning Bush. And as usual, Chris professes to be a Protectors fan, but his review wouldn't let you know that. He's hardly enthusiastic about it. I'll cut in some slack this week, as it isn't a great episode. Even I'll admit that. Keep up the good work, chaps, says Keith Gooch. Thanks for that, Keith.
Cheers, Keith.
Yeah.
Now, I've just looked on Neil's Instagram. And he has posted a picture of an SPV and the Lacey hard drive.
Hooray! Great.
So there we go.
Nice. Yeah, brilliant.
So that's marvellous, isn't it?
Yeah, very, very nice.
Would you like to hand over to our additional co-host?
Oh, yes, I think we should. He's been very patient.
He has indeed. So,
yes.
Chris Dale sits ever so patiently every week.
Yep.
Just waiting to do his randomizer, where he presses a big red button, selects a random episode of a random Gerry Anderson show, and then tells us all about it. So, let's have a listen.
Go on.
And see what this week's randomizer is.
Hooray!
Stop! Who would cross the bridge of death must answer me these questions 3. Ere the podcast's end, he sees.
Ask me the questions, Bridgekeeper. I'm not afraid.
What is your name?
Sir Robin of Camelot.
What is your quest?
To seek the Holy Grail.
Will you press the button on the randomizer for me this week?
That's easy!
Right, over you go. Next. Stop! What is your name?
Sir Galahad of Camelot.
What is your quest?
I seek the Grail.
What color is your favorite Spectrum Captain?
Blue. No, yes!
What episode did the randomizer select today?
There are ways of telling.
Well, what's that then? What does it say? Run away! Run away! Run away! Run away! Run away!
So, welcome back to the Randomiser Terrorhawks, Series 2 with Runaway, and we open, I thought we were going to open on Mars, but we've opened in the White House, with, of course, Tiger playing his game. Mary's doing something on a computer, I think.
This time I'll beat it for sure.
Zero and Deesweet are watching both of them.
He do seem close to beating the highest score ever.
He will be the champion.
We never found out whose high score that was. I'd have to assume it's...
Quiet!
It's Tiger's own score.
What's that?
Sounds like a Zeef. Oh, Mary's painting, yes. That was something she occasionally did. Well, that's quite a nice nighttime shot.
Third time today. Who in Spacefire is that?
God. Oh, and it's lost Tiger his game. With 1 point to go to beating the high score.
Ever get my hands on that pilot, I'll pulverize him. I'll...
Calm down, Tiger.
Some odd... The way the puppet was working there almost looked like he had some kind of facial tics going on.
Tiger.
And what's Mary painted?
Yes, it's, still wet.
It's a portrait of him.
Your angry air.
With a massive eye and a zeroid inside. It's quite a nice piece, actually. And I seem to recall that was one that came up on the Terrorhawks auction a few years ago. I hope whoever got that enjoys it. Anyway, we're now on Mars. And again, it's also nighttime on Mars, interestingly enough.
I must be careful.
And someone...
Wake them up.
...is trying to sneak away.
Uncle Youngster? Oh.
An odd shot of the floor there, actually, where we can see what I guess might be panels that were removed to allow the puppeteers to get in there and
running away.
Work the characters.
Where?
Yes, Youngstar is...
Where to? I don't know.
He's going to run away from home.
To Earth.
And, of course, he's got his stick with a little bundle of supplies on the end of it.
Little girl, and go back to bed.
Oh.
All right, Uncle.
And I love that Youngstar treats the girl persona
What have we here?
of Itstar very differently than he does the boy. He seems to almost trust the girl,
Has a lot to
which Itstar, of course, exploits at various points.
Yes, indeed.
For how long, man, uncle?
Forever.
That long, eh? Well,
And it's a nice touch to the character. You can imagine that after so many episodes of abuse,
prepared a small dish which I'm sure you will enjoy.
he'd have got thoroughly fed up with living here.
The table.
Itstar
Some light in here.
was already planning to see his uncle off.
My favourite. Oh, what's this grey powder?
Cocaine.
White sauce. Try it.
Oh.
Oh, yes.
It's a reminder that the Terrorhawks puppets can do many things, but they can't eat convincingly.
Very good.
Youngstar got most of that up his nose and down his shirt.
Here's to your new life. 3 cheers for Youngstar. Hip hip, hooray! Hip hip, hooray!
And I love Youngstar's building enthusiasm. Up to that. And of course then we have Zelda and Sistar show up in their night gear.
Did we wake you, my grandmother?
Oh, we didn't mean to do that, my grandmother.
Mother, Get out, you tongue-tied freak!
Oh, it would have been so much easier if he just left.
To run away from home. What? I am going to strike out on my own.
I'm going to open Weatherspoon's, Mother. I think it will do quite well.
I can't do the voice.
Thinks he is leaving home. But I will soon.
Yeah, Sistar's got her curlers in. Oh, they look brilliant. Again, I think this is things where the people working on the show must have just had an absolute ball. Anything went in Terrorhawks.
Is it, my devious one?
And that's part of the appeal, I think.
Not let your simpleton of a son run away to Earth.
Because he wouldn't last 5 minutes.
Correct.
So there was a plan within a plan here. Youngstar had a plan to run away.
Accursed Terrorhawks.
Who would take him?
To their stinking lair.
And if a device had been secreted on his person?
We could discover the location of the secret hawk nest.
Youngstar's just eating in the background.
Would quickly detect such a bugging device.
Not if it was in the form of a special powder which pervaded the whole body.
Does such a powder exist?
Yes, my grandmother, he just ate it.
Again, more build. Oh, Youngstar wiping his face with his napkin. You're more building hysteria with Denise and Jeremy there doing those characters. I love that. Yes, my grandmother, he just ate it.
When I get to the earth,
and this is lovely,
and walk among the trees, and eat coal, and enjoy myself.
Oh, it's just such a wonderful insight into the character. You know, the idea of him being able to enjoy himself in any way is so alien to him that he feels he has to run away to a completely different planet in order to do it. And enjoying himself comes third after eating coal. It's just lovely. Anyway, these space Zeroids can't stop Youngstar. There's coal to be eaten, and he's going to eat it. Oh.
The Zeef has entered a space flight corridor.
Of course it has. There was always a convenient freighter nearby.
Transporter.
To hide near if we needed it.
Here comes the land.
Uh-oh.
But I think I'm coming down too fast.
Whoa. Yes, he's hit the ground. It's a very nice crash landing here. And this, yes, it flips. And ends up upside down.
I'm down.
So, of course...
I'm upside down. I must have landed in Australia.
God. Again, it's a brilliant bit of humour. I love a lot of the humour in this episode.
10-10, hero.
It's very Tony Barwick. Very quotable lines in this one.
Live.
And, of course, where has Youngstar landed? Well, he's landed on the outskirts of Badwater County, and there, over the road...
Peters for alias. What? Oh no, it's Peeps for Elites.
Yes, it's the diner in, of course, Badwater County. I think this is the first of 2 appearances for Pete, the diner owner, and the very glamorous waitress Sue Ellen. Who's about to get a very nasty shock when she sees Youngstar.
It be?
Do you have any coal?
What?
Coal.
We're on gas.
Pity.
Oh dear. I make no apologies for the fact that I find this a very funny episode. I'm very glad to see it come up today. And for such a minor character, Sue Ellen actually got some very nice publicity photos taken of her. You may have seen them. If you follow the Terrorhawks Facebook page, you may have seen some of them crop up.
Care what he looks like.
Some second series characters got some very nice publicity photos. Mrs. Dapples is one, and the Space Cyclops was another. And, of course, young stars eating the menu.
Water, sir? Pete! Call the police! He's a nut!
I know some people aren't quite that keen on Pete and Sue Ellen, but I think they're a nice addition to the sort of non-existence of Badwater County, really. It's nice to flesh it out beyond one street and a police station.
Here, Bull.
And speaking of policemen...
Sue Ellen, what's all this about?
Sheriff Bull's here. More importantly, he managed to get up from behind his desk.
2 glasses, a fork, and a spoon.
Oh, yeah?
And here comes another killer line.
Where you think you're at, boy? Australia? On your feet, boy. I'm taking you into custody.
Yes, it's just... I love it. I love the silliness of that.
Can you hear me, Mom?
The puppetry here is a bit lacking. The Sheriff Bull's really having trouble getting Youngstar out the door, and it almost looks like they're about to kiss because the puppets are just so close to each other. And here comes Colonel Johnson.
From the Zeef.
To chat to Tiger at the White House. Interestingly, there's a shot of his helijet on what appears to be a golf course.
Interrogate him at Hawk Nest?
In the front of Hawk Nest? I can't decide if that's the front or back.
I know. No more questions. I'll be on my way.
I just came here to say one line and now I'm going. Yeah, there's definitely a golf course sort of flag there that the helijet's landed next to. Again, I gather Tony Barwick was a keen golfer, so maybe he put that little note in the script that the Terrorhawks have their own golf course.
This survivor, he falls so conveniently right into the palm of our hand.
So?
So I have a theory it's all a little too easy.
Call for you on 3, sir.
No calls.
I think you'll want to take this one, sir.
Why didn't you send Hawkwing out to...
overflying the White House.
Intercept the Zeef once it came into the Earth's atmosphere?
My name's Harry Salzburg. I guess you've heard of me.
Oh yeah, I make the James Bunt films.
We're doing a location reconnaissance, and your house would be just perfect for my next epic.
Out of the question, Tiger.
We've got that big golf match tomorrow.
Sure. I'm a producer.
Then we may be able to do a little business.
Aha! And now it's time for Anderbo Records. Our other regular Badwater County location. And I can tell by the waveform on my timeline here, we're about to get a whole slab of living in the 21st century here, which was used in abbreviated form on the American broadcast of the show. But I like the lyrics in this. A lot of them are nonsense, but it's a nice tune. As Kate's, so many of Kate's songs were. I wish we had more of them. Living in the 21st century. I'm not sure what she's wearing there. It's a sort of dressing gown come dress thing that has an odd fastener around the neck. I mean, I'm no expert on ladies' fashions, so maybe someone out there will say, actually, no, that's a very, very stylish thing she's wearing. But I don't know. I think she's had better. Very cool, actually, reflection there of Stu's hands playing the piano reflected in his sunglasses. So, obviously, you couldn't get a Terrorhawks puppet to play the piano, but just the reflection of it in his eyes does effectively suggest that he actually is.
Do we have a problem?
Yes, I have to leave.
Oh, wow, that's fantastic, really. I mean, great, you know, wonderful.
Oh, Stu's in Saki mode today.
Why do you always ask me that, man? It really bugs me, you know? I mean, why do you always say it? What's happening to you? What's happening to you? I mean, it drives me crazy, man. Do you understand what I'm trying to say?
And I guess there's only so many responses you can do to this joke over the course of the series, but this is quite an effective one.
Faceless sheet of glass.
Yeah, okay. Thank you, Mr. King. Yeah, I'm sorry.
Okay, Stu, just take it easy.
Yeah, I'm fine, really. Yeah, I'm all right now.
Mr. King must have to allocate a certain number of hours per day to dealing with Stu and his little ways. And here we are in Sheriff Bull's office.
Right. Speak to me.
Another chance for me to mention that I own the diplomas on the office wall there.
For me.
And the telephone, which was just briefly in shot there.
Crazy old boy in here. Right away, Sheriff. Now, you put me in mind of someone. That little old singer gal.
Really?
Oh.
You wouldn't just happen to be Kate Kestrel now, would you?
Is it likely, Sheriff?
About as likely as there's snowball in the Arizona desert.
Oh dear. Yes. Severe breathing problems for Sheriff Bull.
Kilroy!
But I love how many files he's got on the shelf behind him there.
Well, he's all yours.
I mean, you obviously you assume they are case histories, but I've always wondered if they are cases completed successfully or cases unsolved. We will never know. But here we are.
The prisoner is without.
Has he been checked?
Yes, sir.
And interestingly, considering this is the White House, well, supposed to be the White House, they have a photo of Kate in her Terrorhawks uniform.
Of Hawkeye?
And speaking of surprising things, here's Hawkeye.
He might try and make a bolt.
In the second series of Terrorhawks.
He's not
What's he doing here? Hadn't he faded into non-existence by this point?
You're at Hawk Nest.
It's almost sort of like unsettling when you see Hawkeye. Well, not unsettling, but it's like genuinely sort of, oh, when you see Hawkeye pop up in the second series, because he's just never there.
And finally,
I think he maybe has 3 appearances tops.
Undoubtedly.
But it stars
Secret base with
magic graphite explosive compound thingy.
Undoubtedly, mein Grandmother.
Which they're using to track Young Star.
the attack.
Oh, and they're sending the Rhino to do this attack. Very serious stuff. And Young Star looking very tight-lipped.
Take over, Mary. I can't get a thing out of him.
You ran away from your home on Mars?
Yes, indeed.
Yeah.
Secretly?
I've always got the impression that Young Star rather liked Mary.
Right.
So Zelda didn't know?
Yes.
In fact, I kind of wanted to do in the Terrorhawks audios a story, a body swap story, where Zelda swaps bodies with Mary. So now the Terrorhawks have to deal with Mary inhabited by the spirit of Zelda, this very nice woman who's suddenly snapping at them. And on Mars, Mary is in Zelda's body, and the way she kind of escapes is to be very nice to Young Star, who suddenly finds that his mother is exactly the kind of mother that he always wanted.
Missiles!
Obviously it never happened.
Their target.
Maybe one day, who knows? But I think you need Dinnies for that, because she's just brilliant.
What was Zelda's plan?
And she's opened fire.
Give me a plan, but
on Young Star's location.
Give me a bowl of lovely food.
Either he's very clever or a complete idiot.
Well, what do you think?
What is it, Zero?
Space Hawk reports a stream of high-velocity missiles.
Target?
Right where we are standing.
Ooh. And some very nice expressions on the Young Star puppet there in trying to look tight-lipped, and then he realises he's under attack. Oh, maybe
Zelda?
this isn't what I thought it would be.
To do, you blonde buffoon.
And Zelda can't get through to reclaim Young Star.
It's the powder that pervades his body.
Oh.
Ooh. Something wrong, Mommy?
3 minutes, Tiger.
Well, I guess it's time to leave.
You think I don't understand what's going on? You're leaving, but all this will be destroyed. Hawk Nest will be blown into tiny pieces.
So, have they won?
Outside.
Could Young Star be right for the first time in his life? Or not?
It's cardboard. The wall's made of cardboard.
Sorry to disappoint you. You're not in Hawk Nest. This is a set on an empty stage in an abandoned film studio due for demolition.
Aha! Well, it was very lucky that happened to become available, thanks to Mr. Salzberg. And there's a model, well, a couple of models. There's a TB1 on a red nose cone, and there's a Century 21 Productions slate. So yeah, we're meant to assume that this is the old site of Century 21 Productions.
mein uncle is a most unfortunate fellow.
And we're coming up on a line here that I've always found a bit strange, and I've often wondered if it's a reference to something.
If I had a candle, I could have some light. If I had a match.
Is that a quote? Is that a reference for something? Is that more Shakespeare that I am unaware of? Oh, that's quite a brutal, end for young Star there. The doorway of the White House just collapsed on him. And you have the shot of the wall falling, the shot of young Star reacting, and then just sudden black. He's dead.
Young Star.
Young Star's dead.
My poor little boy.
Oh.
Well, that's the way the cookie cake crumbles. He's most certainly dead.
Dead?
No.
Then my powers may now well work.
Oh. Well, that's an interesting twist. We can recover the body at least. Oh. Well, that's quite a sad shot. Poor dead young Star. All he wanted was a quiet life, eating coal.
If you don't mind me saying so, sir, he was as artful as a shuttle full of space monkeys.
That's not a compliment, is it?
Or rather, Zelda demolished an old studio for him.
That implies chaos and just madness. The tiger takes it well, and Sistar's working on repairing young Star with a soldering iron.
All soldered back into place.
Because Sistar's the one you want to trust with a soldering iron, isn't she?
My looks.
Don't worry, mein uncle. Your looks will still scatter a crowd at 40 paces.
Oh.
Crowd at 40 paces.
Oh dear. But of course he has to join in, because he doesn't want to feel left out. Poor old young Star.
I don't get that.
So young Star finds himself back in the environment that he was so keen to escape from at the beginning of the story. And there we go, that was Runaway. And I've always really liked that one as a story. It's a very thin twist that they have this movie studio guy who just so happens to have a studio that he needs to have demolished. But I think what carries that is the humour and the character stuff, really. It is totally in character and totally believable that young Star would be fed up. He might start thinking, oh, maybe there's a better life on the Earth. Maybe it's just that idea of him. His idea of happiness is just walking in the trees and eating coal and enjoying himself. It's a lovely insight into one of my favourite characters. Quite poignant in a way. That he he has these dreams and he's not allowed to fulfill them. But hey ho. That's just part of being young Star, I guess.
Well, that'll please you.
I'm always pleased by
Bit of
Terrorhawks. And
Yeah.
every time, even when you get to the end of the Terrorhawks theme, whether it plays out or not on the Randomiser or anywhere else, I always hear the little Anderson Burr sting.
Ah, yeah.
The little sort of soprano wail, which don't worry, I'm not going to do. I'm not going to make a habit of singing.
Not after last week? Oh,
no,
okay.
I'm really,
Fair enough.
really
That's
not.
why people
Although
listen.
I was slightly pleasantly surprised by people's reactions, though, so that was nice. It was actually, after I'd done it, and for those of you who haven't heard it, don't bother, go back and listen, but I did sing in inverted commas all the verses from FAB Cluck 5, but I suddenly had a bit of a panic and thought, oh no, this is actually quite a scary thing to do.
It's quite a task, it really is. But you had embarked, didn't you, on the journey?
I was too late, yeah, it was already recorded and I couldn't go back and edit it. Anyway, so that's out there. So thank you for not being unkind, everyone, and thank you most of you for being kind, in fact.
Yeah.
What lovely listeners we've got. Thanks,
What
Podsterons.
lovely listeners. Now, Chris will be back next week. Of course, I just have to say... Well, I think so.
Yeah, you will.
Yes, and that. I just have to say that you must subscribe to us on whichever platform you're listening to us on. Haven't said it's this week, so there it is.
Yep.
And you must leave us a review. It's not would you, it's not will you, it's not please could you. It's you must leave us a review.
Yes.
5 stars, please. Tell us how much you enjoy the show.
Only
and you
5?
must... Yeah, well, yes. And you must also share the link with all your friends so they can get to hear us too. Now, I want to know for next week, very quickly, before we say our goodbyes, whether you have yet played the Thunderbirds Danger Zone card game. because I know that it's been dropping on people's letterboxes or through their letterboxes.
Yes.
Over on YouTube, I think there's a playthrough. I think Ross has done a little video for us. And,
yes, I forgot to mention that in the news, actually.
Yeah. Well, Anonymous commented underneath that this is so incredible. I was born in the early 2000s, and when I was about 2 or 3, I watched Thunderbirds for the first time. I was in awe. I loved everything about it, and yes, even the 2004 one. I loved it all, even the Specsavers ad. This one will definitely be seeing my virtual shopping cart. So someone's very happy to see that. Yeah, it's a rather sweet video, isn't it, that tells you how to play the game. Very nicely done.
Oh, well, thank you, Anonymous.
Yes, indeed.
Very good. Yes, well, let us know. Email us at podcast@gerryanderson.com and let us know if you've played. Or I know there's a couple of play tests coming up. I think one on the 8th on the Monkeys with Fire YouTube channel.
Great.
And there will already be a full-length playthrough live on our YouTube channel as well by the time this goes out. So if you want to see some people playing it and kind of get more familiar with the rules, but we've got a 3-minute version, an 11-minute version, and a full playthrough. So everything to sort of hold your hand through your introduction to Thunderbird's Danger Zone.
Yeah, nice.
And with that, I think it's time for our outroduction from this podcast.
Is there such a thing? But yes, I suppose it must be. Yes, that's good. I like it.
I'll look it up.
Yeah.
So yes, it's goodbye from him,
and it's goodbye from him. Goodbye. Bye.
Stage 1 complete.
Let's go.
Spectrum is green.
Did I get that wrong? Is it supposed to be it's goodbye from me and you're supposed to say it's goodbye from him?
Oh, yes, I think that's exactly what it is, yeah.
Right,
So
yeah, or you could have said it's goodbye from me.
Yeah, I could have done, but I wasn't thinking
on
the ball enough.
We messed it up and then we had to just go with it anyway and leave the whole... It's a bit like the whole singing debacle, isn't it?
It's a bit like the whole of the podcast, to be honest.
We've started now, so we're going to have to carry on.
We've just done pod 1. We better carry on now.
And here we are, 220 later.
Exactly. That's right.
What are we doing? Yeah. Anyway, so are you doing anything that's planned today, or is your day very much like the podcast where it just rolls on out of control?
No, I have plans, actually. I've got to do a self-tape for I think I could say it. It's a Tesco Christmas commercial. Oh, how exciting.
Gosh.
I know. So I've got to get into the Christmas spirit at the beginning of September.
Brilliant. So, Well, it could be worse. There are a lot of people who do stuff for Christmas in April or earlier, so...
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Oh, well, good luck with that.
I'll get the tree out and, put the Christmas jumper on.
Is it for a particular thing or a food stuff, or is it just a general Christmas thing?
Just a general supermarket commercial.
Brilliant. Are you going to wear your Thunderbird's Christmas jumper for it?
I might do that.
Do you know what? I would, if you did do that and then you got the job and they said, only if you wear that, wouldn't that be amazing?
Be great, wouldn't it? Yeah, absolutely. Sponsored by Anderson Entertainment.
Oh, perfect. No, we're not sponsored by. They can pay us. Thank you very much.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, great.
Yes. Would I get any of that, or would it just go straight to...
We'll arrange it. Put me in touch with your agent. We'll see what we can do.
But hang on. But it's my jumper, and obviously I'd be in the ad, so surely I would deserve something.
All right, Richard, you take the lot. We'll just...
All right, there we are. Happy now. Thank you.
Hope it goes well. Enjoy yourself, Tate. Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
Bye.
You have been listening to the Gerry Anderson Podcast. Wasn't it fun?
You have been listening to an Anderson Entertainment production.